And I'm on my, what the fuck is all this? I'm on my other computer now. And we're going to discuss a Legendary Drops video. See, EA has always been in this odd predicament, right? Because you had, like, big brands at the time, like Blizzard, yeah, Activision, brands that really made a name for themselves. But then in came EA and they kind of swooped in, took up all these companies, took up all this like talent. They're kind of the guys behind it all, and I mean they were the flagship of certain legitimately good uh, like IPs, certain like good games and genres. But now they're at this point where I mean everyone just universally hates EA. You know, they've irreparably damaged their IP. Well, not really the IPs, but their particular brand. Like EA is just known for buying up studios, having them pump out all these things. Like they'll have like visceral games, like they had to do a game, comics, webtoons, like a book series, and then when they got done doing this, they just shut the fucking company down and they'll move to another studio, buy it up, squeeze it for all it's worth. Like they were the original asshole. And this was in like 2015, 16, 17. Before that, they had decent games. Like I played in the Mass Effect series. Big fan of 1 and 2. 3 has always had an odd situation, was an odd situation for me, but I enjoyed the game, even though there was inconsistencies throughout. So let's give this a watch.
If there was one company that I could point to and say they are a microcosm of everything that has gone wrong in games today, I'm talking about all the things that players hate about games today. A company that the vast majority of people would sit back and celebrate and watch them burn. Heck, they'd probably bring their own gasoline. That's Electronic Arts. They are the...
Yeah, I also remember EA, like, every cancerous thing you see the gaming industry doing, like microtransactions, pre-order, you can pay a 70, 80, $90 to play early, like every like paying for skins, cordoning off DLC to be paid for late, like no, not DLC, they cording off like get parts that are in the game, right? Gameplay things to be sold to either as pre-order bonus and DLC, so they lock content behind paywalls. Like every scummy fucking thing you see in a video game, you can thank EA for that.
Ultimate evil. They are the progenitor of some of the worst consumer practices: over monetization, exploitation of players, lowering of quality, lowering of standards. Heck, they run the whole gambit, and in a lot of cases, they're the ones that invented it, and the rest of the industry's been following their lead because they've made so much money doing it. But the funny thing is, that stopped. $6 billion erased in an instant. That's 6 Ubisofts if you guys are counting. And
I heard about that, right? I've seen that a lot of the shareholders have pulled the fuck back, pulled a lot of money out, and started, selling their stocks. And they lost a lot of money, but I wasn't actually gonna. Well, I might have made a video if, like, the information was corroborated, but I mean, I don't know if that's what he's gonna talk about, but I mean, that number figure sounds just about right.
it's all because they had to tell their investors that, sorry guys, FC25, which is their biggest franchise, it's one of the biggest franchises in the entire world, is not making money like it used to. People are not buying it, and people are not spending money on the microtransactions like they were before. On top of that, their Star Child and Dragon Age The Veilguard missed sales projections by 50%, which doesn't make a lot of sense because that game was a return to form for BioWare.
Yeah, that's what they said. Again, they use these terms like return to form and all that. Like, that's the new thing that they're using, that, oh, we're going back. Does it actually really go back? No. And at least in the case of Veilguard, there was a lot of like astroturfing. So they try to shut down a lot of like discourse online that talk negatively, like strike it down from YouTube. And I mean, the game sold more than people thought because of that, because they tried to censor any information. They went to mommy YouTube. I guess it's daddy YouTube now, since the YouTube CEO passed away, which is hype. Like, they utilize all their connections to try to shut down information about the game and negative press about the game. And I mean, it sold better than I thought it would. But that's apparently not enough, because they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and unless you have infinite growth, your business model is unsustainable.
You know, I realize a lot of people are going to be like, LD, pump the brakes. There's no way that EA is going to fail. EA's too big to fail. The sports fans are going to buy the sports games, and they're going to make all the money off of microtransactions. The funny thing is, I don't think people understand just how much trouble EA is in. Because over the last few years, over the last decade, honestly, we've seen a gradual decline and a sharp decline from a lot of EA studios. Look at DICE, look at BioWare, look at Respawn. These studios are not producing the same level of quality, and the players are not engaging with any of their products. On top of that, that same rot, that same virus is now seeping into their sports games, and they're suffering as well. So today, what I want to...
Yeah, I mean, there's a specific type of person that plays the sports games. I guess like casual gamers, or the people that had made fun of me for playing goddamn World of Warcraft, but then they play fucking FIFA, and they think that they're a little better. They're not as much of a nerd as I am. So mainly just normies. But now we're hitting this situation, right, where even the normies are seeing a failure in the quality of the product. And normies, these are people that have children, families, they just game in whatever time they have. And then you have EA disrespecting that time with a bad fucking product. It's to the point where they can't even hide it anymore. Like, once the normies find out, once average gamers, because, I mean, you have people like Angry Joe who, are Olympic haters of, like, EA and of their business practices. You have, I don't know, I guess the anti-woke crowd that looks at specific ideologies in the games. But then you just have people that, they just breeze by. And I think gaming has gotten so popular in the past. Like, I think gaming is more popular than movies, TV shows, the music industry. Like, as an entertainment and as an art form. And I'm not to say none of these things don't exist, or they don't have certain popularity to them. It's just gaming as a whole has just hit this level of expansion that, even your goddamn mother knows about games. And I don't know, maybe your goddamn mother even plays games. Who knows? Or at least the cultural perception isn't as against video games as it used to be.
To do is I want to talk to you guys about one of the biggest publishers in the industry and how I think that we have front row seats to one of the greatest downfalls we're ever going to see. But before that, today's sponsor. I don't know if you guys are anything like me, but I'm not an interior decorator. I don't know how to make my home look homey. But luckily for me, Displate has had my back. They've been the way for me to be able to pretend like I have taste, even though it's all anime and video game posters that are on my wall. But today they want me to talk to you guys about their texture designs, and I really like these. Displate's texture designs take things to an entirely new level with tactile 3D contours and select matte and gloss finishes. You can feel the details in these. This is not just a poster, this is a piece of art. If you want to be a truly refined human being, you need to have these on your walls. I recently picked up their licensed Magic the Gathering stained glass mana symbol set, and it looks incredible. And there's so much more to choose from pop culture icons like Star Wars and Marvel to gaming franchises like Elden Ring and Warhammer. These posters are unlike anything else. And just like their classic designs, Texture uses that same easy magnet mounting system. No tools, no wall damage, you can swap them in and out whenever you want to. Plus, now they're available in larger sizes, so you can make an even bigger statement on your wall. Starting January 25th, you can snag Texture designs at discount. So click the link in the description below or go to displate.com and use my code LEGENDARY at checkout to get the best deal. This is a limited time offer between January 25th and February 3rd, so you don't want to miss the chance to grab these premium designs at an unbeatable price. Whether you're a collector or you just want to level up your walls, Displate Texture is the way to go. So check it out using the link below and use my discount starting on January 25th. Thank you, Displate, for sponsoring this video.
בשביל מה אתה חי? באמת. בעומק לבך, אתה יודע בשביל מה אתה חי?
If you haven't been keeping up, EA recently faced a major blow when their stock plummeted 15% following an investor meeting in Town Hall, wiping out $6 billion in value and hitting a 5-year low. While some of their franchises...
Yeah, that is a big fall. Like, that is, like, catastrophic. Like, and it's so weird. I ain't never getting through this video, but you see so many companies, like gaming companies, follow this very trajectory, and it's weird why it's how it's happening across the fucking board, right? Like, maybe there's a couple companies that are, at least in the AAA scene, you know, the companies you grew up with in the past, like, I mean, Blizzard, Ubisoft, EA, Activision, you know, those types of companies, BioWare. And, I mean, you kind of have to step into conspiracy and be like, okay, so is this a deliberate attempt to ruin, you know, the entertainment? I mean, who knows? I don't fucking know. You don't fucking know. We're just looking at this chart, and it's like, I mean, are these the actions of a company trying to step out of gaming as a whole, or out of gaming? They're just sucking up the dividends? I mean, I don't know. Like, if you're upper management, you're probably making more fucking money, making money regardless, but it's the studios that get shut down, the devs, like, and when I mean devs, I mean the people actually that has their hands on the product. Like, I think the voice actors, like, yeah, you even say the voice actors also, like, so many things are going to fall, so many dominoes are going to fall, that you kind of have to wonder if this is a deliberate attempt to destroy the company, or to at least suck up whatever possible interest out of the company, then move on.
Out $6 billion in value and hitting a 5-year low. While some of their franchises still maintain a strong foothold, the company has been reeling from a string of high-profile failures in both their publishing and their development. Battlefield 2042, Wild Hearts, Immortals of Avium, Tales of Kenzera Zao, and Dragon Age the Veilguard have all contributed to a declining interest in their portfolio. Even their once-dominant sports franchises are starting to show signs of waning interest, creating a grim outlook for the future. Now, EA isn't in the same position as, say, Ubisoft, but they're undeniably on the same path. Years of devaluing their franchises, over-monetization, ignoring their audience, losing key talent, and doubling down on misguided investments are finally starting to catch up with them. Despite its reputation as one of the most controversial publishers in gaming, EA is also the company that introduced many of us to the hobby that we love today, to some of the genres that we love the most today. To understand where EA is headed, I think it's essential that we look back at where they started and how they became a cultural force in gaming. In 1982, Trip Hawkins, a visionary from Apple, founded Electronic Arts with a mission to revolutionize the gaming industry. His goal was to treat developers as software artists, emphasizing creativity and innovation. This philosophy set EA apart early on, leading to the creation and publication of some of the most iconic franchises that created some of our most fondest memories. Now, from the start, Hawkins prioritized recognizing...
Yeah, and this is the humble beginnings that, like, a lot of other companies have gone through, right? It's like, you start out small back when, I guess, the company wasn't as popular, but then eventually it becomes popular, and that's kind of the worst thing to happen to, you know, any type of genre as it becomes popular, because you get people in that don't care for the genre as a whole. They mainly just care, okay, how can I extract the wealth from this thing, right? How do I get wealthy off this thing that people like? And then when that happens, it effectively spells the immediate downfall of the thing. And we've seen this through so many other type of like game companies and just entertainment genres as a whole. Like, it just the downfall. And I mean, you have to ask the question, right? You know, the question no one has an answer for, but everybody sees the thing happening, but no one can explain it, or it leads to the argument going in a place that people get emotional and ideological and spurred out about.
And promoting creative talents from within the company before anything else, fostering an environment where innovation could thrive. That bold approach attracted top-tier talent and laid the foundation for EA's meteoric rise to prominence. EA quickly became a household name in sports gaming, starting with its most iconic franchise, Madden NFL. Launched in 1988, this series redefined what sports games could be and became a cultural phenomenon. By 2018, the game had already sold over 130 million copies, and today, the numbers are estimated to be well over 160 million. Its influence extended far beyond sales. It became an integral part of football culture in the NFL, and it's now referred to as the NFL's 33rd franchise. With every new annual release eagerly anticipated by its fans, Madden NFL not only changed gaming, but it also helped popularize American football among new audiences. While Madden anchored...
And it popularized it even in, like, other cultures. Like, people fail to understand, like, I keep saying like a lot, the effect entertainment has in, like, through soft power when it goes to spreading your culture to other, like, cultures and other places on the planet. And, you know, becoming a global phenomenon. Like, let's not undersell this. Like, it is very powerful. It is a very powerful force that people like to pretend just doesn't exist for some reason.
EA Sports legacy, the FIFA series debuting in 1993 solidified the company's global impact. By combining official licenses with leagues and other teams across the world, they appealed to every soccer fan, and FIFA became one of the best-selling video games of all time. By 2021, it had already sold over 325 million copies, bringing the passion of soccer to millions of players and securing its place as a cornerstone of EA's portfolio. While EA dominated the sports genre, its influence extended far beyond that. The Command & Conquer series, a staple of real-time...
Yeah, Command & Conquer was huge. Like, it was one probably solidified like strategy gaming, strategy type games into the perception of the gamers. Because strategy games like there are a lot of them on PC, but PC never really. You had a PC because, well, you had just any old shitty PC running Windows 7, and it was just sort of there. But then Command and Conquer in games like Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds solidified strategy gaming as a whole, and it was well received by people. And now we're entering this odd situation where strategy games aren't really popping off like they used to. You know, they sort of floundered. And even some of those that are grasping on, like Total War, Warhammer 3, people are falling off, and it's real sad. But you know, things come, things go. It's just sort of the way the market is.
Strategy set the standard for base building, resource management, and tactical combat. The franchise not only inspired countless successors, but it also delivered some of the most memorable writing in gaming history, including Tim Curry's unforgettable performance in Red Alert 3. It cemented EA's role as a publisher willing to push boundaries in storytelling and gameplay.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
EA went on to find massive success with the Sim series, a groundbreaking life simulation game that allowed players to create and manage virtual lives. With its endless replayability and universal appeal, The Sims attracted one of the most diverse audiences of any game potentially ever.
Which was the Sims games where you could, you know, like have like make like the city. You can make like natural disasters to destroy the city. I can't remember which one of those I played from the library. Man, now I'm thinking. You got me thinking about it. Which one was it? Probably like the first or second one. I'm pretty sure. The Sims was another, like a lot of women like The Sims, and that endeared it to that demographic of gamers.
Mothers, brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, everybody was playing this game, mostly because they wanted to put an entire family in a pool and then remove the ladder and then put all the gravestones into the house to then haunt the next family. But beyond,
a lot of psychopaths played the game for reasons he literally just described. It was a game where you had so much yeah, you had a lot of freedoms. You're effectively the God Hand in like Black and White, and Black and White 2, that game, man, that game is so fucking old. And you can just micromanage and have your own little cute characters and torture them in the most brutal way possible, but suffer effectively no consequences from it.
on that, it became a cultural phenomenon. It still remains one of the best-selling PC games of all time. In 2002, EA launched the Battlefield series and later acquired its developer DICE in 2006. From its debut, Battlefield 1942, the franchise redefined large-scale multiplayer shooters with massive battles, destructible environments, and realism. Battlefield 3 in 2011 and Battlefield 4 in 2013 set a new benchmark for breathtaking visuals and expansive maps, selling over 88 million copies worldwide and taking over the shooter scene.
Yeah, being able to like have destructible environments was huge. Something that even Battlefield didn't do for a while. I mean, I haven't played the recent couple ones, but that was something big that happened. Like, well, what do you mean you can destroy an entire building with foos in it? That's fucking phenomenal.
EA's acquisition of BioWare in 2007 opened the door to some of the most iconic RPGs in gaming history. The Mass Effect series quickly became a flagship franchise, combining rich storytelling with player-driven choices that shaped a universe. The trilogy, released between 2007 and 2012, it captured hearts of millions of players and redefined what RPGs could achieve. Mass Effect 2 in 2010, with its character-driven narrative and redefined gameplay, is still celebrated as one of the greatest RPGs of all time. BioWare then followed this success simultaneously with the Dragon Age series beginning in 2009 with Dragon Age Origins. Known for its intricate world building and morally complex narratives, the series earned its critical acclaim and established a loyal fan base. With over 15 million copies sold, Dragon Age solidified BioWare's reputation as a master of RPG design.
And what made Dragon Age so amazing? It was kind of what made Lord of the Rings good. It's like the drama. Like, you had the racism. Racism is what made it good, because you could play whatever race, but if you played elves, you were discriminated against. And this gave you the ability to have, go about certain situations the way you want to. And this isn't a fantasy game, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And this made for interesting role playing, except and now we're entering this age where all the races are the same. They're just humans cosplaying as elves, and they're boring, bland, unattractive. Like, they're not mythical, which was the point. Like the Quinari, which is my favorite race, because big stone-horned mommy milkers. They have like effectively an entire codex that they refer to for their culture. And now all that is stripped away because someone wanted to have a TED Talk and force you through a TED Talk.
EA's partnership with Respawn led to the creation of the Titanfall series in 2014, featuring fast-paced combat, wall-running mechanics, and controllable mechs. Titanfall brought a fresh perspective to the shooter genre. While Titanfall 2 in 2016 faced stiff competition at launch, it still earned a devoted following, and from my perspective, it's still one of the best shooters today.
Yeah, Titanfall 2... What the fuck just happened? What the fuck?
Respawn then built upon...
Titanfall 2 was huge. Like, it revolutionized, shooters. Because you had, your first-person shooter, but then you had your Titan, which was a whole nother mechanic. Some people didn't deal with the Titan. Me, I liked it. In fact, I liked the Titan even more than the on-the-ground shooty play. Now, I was good. At one point, I was amazing at the shooty. But, man, if I was to ever get back into Titanfall, because I was thinking about it, I have the game on Xbox, but it's one of those games that I'm so endeared to that I might actually buy it again on PC, but I feel like I'm going to get absolutely rinsed because I've been out the game for too long. We'll see. But I hate, and he's probably going to talk about it, but I hate Apex Legends specifically because it killed Titanfall. Like, with Apex Legends becoming popular, they're like, well, why the fuck would we make a Titanfall if we could just, use Apex Legends as our quote-unquote quadruple A game, which is a game where they just dump even more and more money into. And because I will never get a because Titanfall 1, people didn't really like because it only had a multiplayer. But then Titanfall 2 came out, and it was universally well received because it had a damn good single player. And all it really did was poured over the multiplayer, with the exception of quite a few new Titans and quite a few new guns and abilities. Man, just thinking about it, I finished that Blood West game. Now I want to get back into fucking Titanfall. But I'm pretty sure the people still playing Titanfall are the cream of the crop, like the absolute sweatiest of the sweaties. But we'll see. My favorite Titan was between Legion and Scorch. Like I shot someone out of midair with Scorch's weapon and it had like effectively a grenade launcher that launched thermite grenades. So it was at a trajectory. I always found that to be fucking cool.
Upon this foundation with Apex Legends in 2019, a battle royale game that was set in the Titanfall universe. Its squad-based gameplay, diverse characters, and innovative ping system made it an instant hit, drawing 50 million players within its first month. Apex Legends proved Respawn's ability to be able to adapt and innovate, cementing EA's presence within the live service space. Man, it is honestly crazy to look back and realize how many successful franchises and games EA has either published or developed, how long many of these games have stayed relevant, and how many of these games then went on to inspire new games. From its roots as a pioneer for developer-focused creativity to its dominance in sports, RPGs, and shooters, EA's influence has shaped gaming culture in profound ways.
Yeah, I mean, it has. I mean, they're but a shell of what they used to be now, but, I mean, EA was up there amongst the greats. No one really talked about them, and EA as a... no one really talked about EA particularly, but a lot of their IPs really did endear itself to a lot of gamers. The ones that they published and or made.
Its ability to be able to create games that resonate with diverse audiences. We're talking about just about anybody that's out there, while also pushing boundaries of what's possible in gaming, has made it one of the most significant publishers in history. I've been playing video games since essentially I was born. I popped out with an NES controller,
brother.
and
Amen.
EA houses some of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. And I guarantee there's a lot of you guys that are going to agree with me on this. NHL 94 way back in the day. I remember staying up all night playing Madden with my little brother, smashing controllers on the ground when we celebrated touchdowns, slamming flaming hot Cheetos. I remember going to school and falling asleep in class because I was up all night trying to be the edgiest shepherd that I could ever be in Mass Effect, sharing builds in Dragon Age with my friends and talking about different story outcomes. I actually have to thank EA because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have learned to truly appreciate games and how to be critical of them if it wasn't for playing Dead Space. That was the first game that really made me sit back and think about how games are made. It's the first series.
Yeah. Every time I wanted to play the Dead Space games, something would pop up that made me was like, maybe I don't want to play. I'll play it later. Like, I wanted to play the first one, but then the marketing for the second one what made it kind of seem like a action shooter. I'm like, wait, but that's not what I wanted. Like, I want it to be like they had that. What was that commercial? It's like it's not the game your grandmother would play or some shit like that. Like, just odd marketing tactics that made me was like, okay, so why would I play Dead Space if if it's going to be an action, if I can just play Halo, right? And it's really the marketing that sort of turned me off of Dead Space. And then I was going to want to play it again, but then Callisto Protocol came out, and I watched a friend play it, and I wasn't a fan of Callisto Protocol. Well, before Callisto Protocol, it was Dead Space 3 that everyone universally agreed was bad, the worst, when it came out. But then there was Callisto Protocol that people were like, yeah, it was fine. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. Like, if you mastered the dodging and the hitting, like they've completely revamped the combat system, and I wasn't much of a fan of it. But then the remake of 1 came out, and it was also broiled in controversy because yet again I was like, yeah, I'll give this franchise a try. Then it was broiled in controversy yet again because of, people saying there's inclusion of they're changing certain posters, changing certain things, which is why I don't much care for remakes. Because it's just the idea that you can take the original, change it, and remove things, and you think you know better. And it also came out at a bad time where everything's becoming a remake, and now there's just this, base stigma I have against remakes. So, again, every time I wanted to try Dead Space, something would come out or they'd make some decision that turned me right back off.
It's the only series that I've ever 100%ed. The lighting was insane. The sound design was unlike anything I'd ever even experienced before. And those were the first times that I ever even thought about those kind of things in games. I never took the time to think about those kind of things. That moment when you walk down the hallway and you get grabbed by a tentacle is like the most insane experience ever. I'm pretty sure my body left my soul. I was so terrified. It was so good, man. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. Like, some of the best games I played didn't really have much of story, didn't really have much of a plot. I mean, there's always this debate on which is better, story or gameplay. And I don't know. I'd personally say gameplay is king for the reasons why I did not like Callisto Protocol, because it had quite, an interesting story, an interesting plot, but such dog shit doo-doo fucking combat system that if they would have just kept the same combat system that the previous ones had, I think would have been better. The gameplay is what you interact with throughout the majority of the game. The story is just icing on the cake. Like, you wouldn't go without the icing on the cake, because, I mean, would it really be a cake? But bad icing can really, like, you throw the whole damn cake out if you have bad icing on it.
There's something in the founder's initial mindset, that idea that you need to be promoting and recognizing talent above all else. And because of that, it showed throughout their entire catalog. That's how you get great games, because you have to pay attention to the creatives, you have to keep them in charge, and that's how everything gets made. You keep making things and building things and being innovative, and the only way you can do that is by recognizing the talent that you have and making sure that they're the ones that are actually out there steering the ship in the first place. That's how they became one of the biggest publishers, if not at one point in time, they were the biggest publisher in the entire world.
Yeah, it should be so fucking easy to figure that out. But we are where we are now, because apparently that's the hardest concept to grasp. It's like, well, what do you mean? You have to treat the people and the flagship, with respect, and actually treat the IP with respect. What do you mean we can't just milk it of all its cash? Milk the consumer of all their cash, treat it like any other mass-producible product that, we can withhold from the consumer at whatever point we want, because, how dare the consumer demand we do better, right? They're the filthy peasants. We're the one with the IP, right? And then the consumer's like, okay, well, you're not the only one making games. I'm just going to move on. Peace. Right? You got to understand, the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love in this situation is apathy. The problem is people just don't care for, the game, EA, and, like, people have lost faith. And this is faith that, took years to craft, years to cultivate, that they chose to destroy in, like, what? A couple years at max. Like, that's all it really took to destroy the goodwill and the good faith people had towards them. And again, people are glad that this is happening. Like, yeah, people are happy. They're like, yeah, if shitty companies go under, I mean, that's a skill issue.
But they were doing that. And they don't do that anymore. That's the thing. Because it all changes. It's always the same story with a lot of these companies. They always start for the best reasons possible, and then the next thing you know, well, EA just busted a hard left. It wasn't about the creatives. It wasn't about the innovation. It wasn't about the player's experience. It became about growing profits and quick turnarounds. How can we make the most money as fast as possible? And that's been the only thing that they've been interested in. And what's crazy is I found the exact moment it happened. A slow illness spread throughout the company, leaving its games, studios, and reputation fundamentally altered. For me, the symptoms of this first appeared with Mass Effect 3. I love this series. I loved Mass Effect 3, but something felt wrong. Role-playing mechanics were stripped back. Many of the choices that we made in earlier games were rendered completely meaningless. The ending felt rushed, and the addition of multiplayer to a narrative-driven game just felt jarring. It didn't feel right. It was foreign. It was...
Yeah, and I told my brother, I'm like, Mass Effect just seemed like the type of game where they read the cover of the book, and usually the cover of any book, like when you open the very first page, like the title page of the book, will give you like the brief overview of the contents of the book. It's made by people that just read the cover of the book of Mass Effect and was like, alright, we can do something like that. But they didn't really analyze the substance. Like, they didn't see what made Mass Effect Mass Effect. Now, and again, despite all the inconsistencies, I would have enjoyed the game a hell of a lot more if, again, the ending wasn't what they said the ending wouldn't be when talking to the consumer.
It's as if the very soul of the franchise was being diluted. What I didn't realize at the time was this was the beginning of EA's transformation into a company almost entirely driven by profit. And that pattern continued with Dead Space 3. What had once been a harrowing survival horror series became unrecognizable. While I still enjoyed the game, it was just different. While co-op definitely added something unique to the experience, everybody remembers the elevator scene, the multiplayer lowered the stakes of the game, and the addition of a convoluted crafting system that was tied to microtransactions hollowed out the entire experience. The introduction of the resource integration gear rig system with its drones that are going out gathering things on a timer that you could be rushing with real money. This is not only intrusive, but it's emblematic of the shift in how EA actually viewed its audience, not as fans to be delighted, but as wallets to be emptied. Back in 2013, this kind of aggressive monetization felt alien, but now it just reads as a harbinger of the company's future direction. Now, after remembering what it felt like to play these games and how everything just felt different, I ended up doing a bit of research. I cross-analyzed some dates, trying to figure out what happened, why did things change, and then I realized that there was a key leadership change in 2007 before these games released that fundamentally changed that company and all of the games to be released in the next 5 years, which both includes Mass Effect 3 and Dead Space 3, and that was the return of John Riccitiello as CEO in 2007.
Was this the guy that, was talking about people having to pay per ammo on their fucking gun? And then he insulted his devs for not adding some of the most predatory monetization in the game. I think he called them fucking idiots. Like, this guy is like a mentally ill CEO type shit, like actual villain from the comic books, and he ain't even hiding it anymore. He's like, yeah, I want to literally just strip people of their wealth, suck people dry of their wealth in a game. Like, I'm not going to treat this game like art. I'm going to treat it as a means to get money. And there's no, like, CEOs is like, there's a very small, limited pool of CEOs, and many companies want CEOs that have, like, years of experience, like 10, 20, 30 plus years. So I'm not surprised this guy is getting passed around the industry like a used fleshlight, because CEOs are in a bit of a demand. It's just it's still, even if you understand, it's still fucking surprising to see it.
Riccatello, probably one of the most infamous CEOs in all of gaming, and the one that said that he wanted to charge players $5 or more to reload their guns in first-person shooters. But when he came in, he brought a vision of relentless monetization. Under his leadership, EA adopted a new strategy that prioritized immediate financial returns over long-term creative success. This approach was then further solidified in 2011 when Riccatello transitioned EA to the NASDAQ Global Select Market, a move that would demand stringent financial performance. We're talking this is going to place a ton of pressure onto this company to deliver consistent, exponential growth. The result was a relentless push for profits that came at the expense of quality, leading to decisions that would alienate their players and ultimately ruin their games. I think the fallout of this is most evident with EA's treatment of BioWare, a studio that was renowned for its rich storytelling and complex characters. Under EA, BioWare released major hits like the Mass Effect trilogy and Dragon Age Origins, but the cracks soon began to show. Dragon Age 2 was rushed to market with a development cycle that was reportedly as short as 14 to 16 months. The result was a game that, while ambitious with its storytelling, felt repetitive and shallow, with recycled environments and oversimplified mechanics.
Yeah, it was too that because you go through this portal and it would reuse a lot of its things, like a lot of maps and things. I thought is 2 and Origins the same thing? I keep thinking they're the different games, but I think Origins and 2 is the same thing. But yeah, that's the thing I was odded me out. It's like, why are you reusing a lot of these places we've already been in the first one? And I mean, now we know why.
Fans were left divided, and a once pristine reputation was now tarnished. Then came Mass Effect Andromeda, a game that was marred by rushed production, poor management, and lack of polish. What should have been a triumphant return to the series became a cautionary tale of overambition and under-delivery. This was then followed by Anthem, perhaps the most glaring example of EA's mismanagement. BioWare, a studio that's built their entire empire off of single-player RPGs, was now tasked with creating a live service game to compete with Destiny and Warframe.
And I even gave Anthem a fucking try. Like, I wanted to like the game because it looked cool. Like, I like sci-fi mech bullshit. So yeah, I'm gonna try to give it its fair shake. Too bad it was garbage. I mean, I heard that the developers didn't even know what type of fucking game they were making until Anthem was showed in its release in what was it? E3, I think it was. Like, the developers didn't even know what type of fucking game they were even supposed to make with Anthem until it was showcased to everybody else. And they're like, oh yeah, that's the type of game we're making.
The result was disastrous, a game that was plagued by shallow content, a disjointed story, and chaotic development. BioWare's identity and much of its leadership was sacrificed in the pursuit of trends and profit margins, leaving fans disillusioned and the studio's future uncertain. Even franchises of theirs that initially resisted the rot eventually succumbed to it. DICE, the creators of Battlefield, delivered hits like Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 4, games that cemented themselves as a serious competitor to Call of Duty, but as EA's obsession grew with monetization, so did their interference. By the time Battlefield 1 arrived, microtransactions and loot boxes had already crept into the experience, signaling the beginning of the franchise's decline. I think this all really came to a head.
Yeah, and 1 was fine, because I didn't really much care for all that, but the problem with what EA's doing is now every other company's doing it. And like their multiplayer games, like every game has predatory microtransactions. You can pay for skins. It has a season pass type deal. Goofy single player that has a lot of mechanics but doesn't really double down on any one thing. You know, they have dailies, weeklies, season pass, quests. So if you don't sign in every day, it's like the FOMO hits you. It's like every single one of these games start to just feel the same after a while. And after a while, it's like, well, why would I play this and not play fucking Nikkei Goddess of Victory and get my ass jiggle simulator, right?
Head with Star Wars Battlefront 2, a game whose aggressive pay-to-win mechanics sparked global outrage. Players were forced to grind dozens of hours to unlock iconic characters like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker, or they could just pay to skip the grind. The backlash was so severe that EA had to temporarily remove microtransactions, but by the time they did, the damage was already done, both to the game and EA's reputation. The decay extended beyond shooters and RPGs to EA sports franchises. Once celebrated for their authenticity and innovation, today, FIFA and Madden NFL are widely criticized as hollow cash grabs, offering little more than annual roster updates. The real focus is put into...
Yeah, because all the games are just asset swaps. Like every year, there's a roster update. There's assets that are swapping. You can even... And, like, the crowd doesn't even look like... You know, they don't look as... What's the word I'm looking for? Realistic as they did in even older NFL games and even older like football sports games or basketball sports games. Like people can tell if a product is being mass produced or if art like games, movies, TV shows are being just mass produced. Like they can tell when the soul of a thing is gone. Like, and this is just everyday, ordinary people. Now imagine how the fans feel when they see things like this happening. And, you know, a happy customer will probably maybe tell one, maybe even two people. But a dissatisfied customer will gladly tell 10, 15, 20 people how dissatisfied they are. Like, if you run by this logic, it's no surprise, you know, when Angry Joe bashed these games literally every year. It's like a yearly thing for him to shit on the FIFA games and the Madden games. It's like a sport. Like people will sit with bated breath, waiting like a fucking album about to hit the damn market, about to drop on the next Madden game, right? Because it's effectively an Olympic sport to shit on these bad products, right? And it should be. Like, you know, bad decisions kill companies, not the consumer. I mean, well, the consumer kind of can if they don't buy and if enough of them are outraged, but you can't blame the consumer. Like, you as a company only has the power to meet consumer expectations, and if you fail to do that, you just shouldn't exist.
Modes like Ultimate Team, which encourages players to spend exorbitant amounts of money, real money, on card packs in a system that's honestly worse than any gacha game. These practices have drawn criticism not only for their exploitative nature, but also how they overshadow any meaningful content being added to the game. Even The Sims, a franchise that's synonymous with creativity and charm, has not escaped EA's grasp. While the base game offers a solid foundation, the sheer volume of paid expansions, over 60 DLC packs costing up to $1,300 in total. You may as well go play Star Citizen at that point. At the heart of all of this decay lies a corporate philosophy that sees players not as people to engage with, not as players to deliver anything to, but as customers to extract from.
And you can kind of blame Skyrim with the horse armor. Like, everyone shat on Skyrim for having the horse armor, but people absolutely bought the fucking horse armor. And Riccatello, like, this is absolutely something he wants, and this is why he's hired. Like, the company expect him to do things like these. This is why you have a CEO, right? Probably someone with his background to raise the profits of the company, you know, give shareholder value. This is why he was hired. And yeah, at some point you can't really blame him. You know, he's doing what he's supposed to do. It's just, if it's at the cost of the consumer and the product as a whole,
Riccatello's infamous quip about wanting to charge players for reloads wasn't a joke. That was a mission statement. Under his leadership and that of his successors, EA has normalized exploitative practices, loot boxes, overpriced DLCs, and minimizing what is delivered to the player, setting a precedent for the rest of the industry. This company's relentless pursuit of profit at the expense of quality and creativity didn't just tarnish their reputation, it influenced other publishers to adopt similar predatory tactics. The result is an industry that often prioritizes financial exploitation over innovation, over creativity, over respect for their audience. EA's shift in priorities, driven by the desire to satisfy their shareholders and short-term financial goals, has left a trail of broken franchises, disillusioned fans, and squandered potential. Now, I realize everybody's going to have their own culprit. They're going to point to Activision or Blizzard or Ubisoft or maybe Bethesda in some cases. But from my perspective, EA is the pioneer in some of the most gut-punching, price-gouging, underhanded, exploitative tactics that are used against players today, used against the customers today. They do everything they can to take as much as they can without giving anything back. They're the face of greed, of gluttony, of sin. They are the Asmodan of the video game industry. Diablo 3 reference for you guys there.
God.
You know what's crazy is that we can actually see that they had such noble goals at the start, but the original visionary, the guy that started the company, the guy that came from Apple, ended up starting a company that is falling victim to the very thing that his former boss, Steve Jobs, warned most of the industry about, most of these creative industries about. Most people have seen the clips or they've heard the quotes by now about how the minute that you kick out creative minds and you hand over control to career CEOs and marketing minds is the minute that you stop providing a product to your customers and start providing a service to your shareholders. And that's rotting out the creative foundation of these companies. And what's crazy is we can actually see the minute where everything turned around for this company, the minute that they turned left on us. That's when they took on John Riccatello.
I mean, it was that, and again, it was, what was this, like, 2015, 16, 17? Like, it was when gaming as an industry just got exponentially popular, and when things get popular, you're like, yeah, what happens is people come in, they're like, okay, instead of wanting to give a product that, you know, wants to serve the customers and making money off that, now we're serving ourselves, and this is the definition of, like, bureaucracies. It's like, if the system exists to serve itself over that of, you know, the people it meant to serve, then congratulations, it's a bureaucracy now. And a lot of companies are falling to the bureaucratic mindset, and, well, to an extent, the mindset of, you know, let's use our consumers as a resource instead of treating them like, you know, like treating the market like, okay, we're not the only ones on the planet to do this, so we actually have to serve the consumer. No, it's like the consumer needs to serve us. And they use many underhanded tactics to do this, you know. At one point, they tried to use ideology and shove it down your throat. But again, nowadays that don't work because that's getting stamped the fuck out, and rightfully so, because you can't shame the customer into buying a product. Like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. It's like selling a product doesn't work that way. Thank you very much. You cannot shame someone, shame the money out their fucking pocket. And there's also things like, you know, going online, blaming the consumer, blaming the gamer, throwing labels on them. Like, these tactics that, again, across the board, these companies are using. And when you see it once, you've seen it, like, you've seen it all. Because I know it's your fault as the consumer is failing. Like, you're the bad guy. And it's like, what? I'm sorry, what?
Parasite of a CEO, a dude that'll laugh about wanting to exploit his customers. That's crazy to me. Look what happened to their games. Multiplayer forced into everything, microtransactions in every single game. It proliferated throughout the entire company. Nothing was sacred. And I realize it's a relatively highbrow financial discussion to have when I talk about how he changed the company to, you know, NASDAQ Global Select. But what that does is it illustrates how stakes increased, how the expectations of the company were exponentially increased. They had to deliver so much more on the financial side than they normally would have to, because they're not competing with video game companies anymore. They're competing with Exxon, with Google, with Nvidia. It's a totally different ball game. And I don't think that
Yeah, it's like they're competing with effectively completely different markets, right? And what you get is a product that's just not for your target audience. It's not for your market. It's bureaucracy that means to serve the company. Like, they're effectively acting the way monopolies would act, but EA is not a monopoly. I mean, they're a company that needs to sell a product. Like, I didn't even know that they were trying to compete with just other markets. Because at the end of the day, the point of EA is to make video games. So it is like, if they fail to do that, well then why does EA even exist?
is healthy or sustainable in a creative industry, because this industry is anything but consistent. But they kept making money, and a lot of it. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of these companies ended up following them and doing what they do in their games, because, well, EA was making a ton of money doing it.
Yeah, and the shareholders were investing. Again, it's that idea of infinite shareholder value and infinite profitability. And you see that nowadays with AI. Like, AI is the next prospect of infinite growth that you're going to see. It may be in gaming, maybe in other forms of entertainment and tech. And I'm not surprised if AI is even, EA's even not utilizing. It's like, you'd be dumb as a company not to utilize these tools. Like, if I was a company, I'd absolutely fucking utilize these tools. Like, beyond, like, without a doubt.
But that's built off of the back of the fact that they have a lot of habit buyers, people that have been buying annual franchises and things like that. A lot of people that are buying things out of nostalgia. A lot of folks that have no idea that some of these studios and these games that they fell in love with years ago have had the soul sucked out of them. And I think a really good example of that is actually Anthem, when you think about it, because that game was still a financial success. They sold 5 million copies. They broke even. I think they made even a little bit more money than what they actually spent in development.
Yeah, and that's because it was new. I mean, it was... you mainly just made a lot of money off of people being... a lot of people were like... what's the word I'm looking for? They were curious. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people was curious about the IP and was like, oh, I'm gonna check this out. And that's why they made a lot of money. I mean, it did make a lot of money. I too was a humble payer of Anthem, and my friends too. It's just at that point, people seeing like what the fuck is this? Like, what was this supposed to be a game? Like, this just looked like it felt like a cash grab. It had all the, predatory things your usual suspects would have. A gear score system, a rarity system, microtransactions, barely any cosmetics. And that pissed me off. It's like, wait, what? Like, you're not even doing the thing right. Like, they'd siphon out cosmetics every couple of weeks, but there's barely any to be in with, so you're like, well, what the fuck, man?
And that game was a massive flop, a huge failure that was shut down within like a year of the game's release. That's crazy. They kept getting away with it. But the funny thing is that over all of these years, over exploiting your players, ruining trust, losing key creatives, well, slowly but surely, you're not going to be able to get away with it. And now, the Reaper has come for them. Oh man, this is a long time coming. The past couple of years for EA have been a roller coaster of highs and lows. They have had some incredible releases that reminded players of what EA is capable of when it focuses on quality, but these have been overshadowed by monumental failures, mismanagement, and dwindling player trust. EA had a rare win with the Dead Space remake in 2023. It nailed the atmosphere, the tension, and the horror, all while upgrading everything to modern graphics and refined mechanics. As a fan of the original, I was genuinely surprised it's a proper remake that didn't cut any corners. Then there was Star Wars Jedi Survivor, a solid follow-up to Fallen Order with great gameplay and engaging story, and players loved it, but the launch was a bit on the rough side with some serious...
Yeah, and isn't Fallen Order and that game, it wasn't that Respawn, like, it, whenever Respawn makes actually is let loose to make the game they want without EA looking over their shoulders and imposing stupid shit, they can actually make good products. Yeah, it's weird how that happens, right?
Serious performance issues on PC and on consoles. Still, despite the technical problems, it stood out as one of the better releases for the year. But these wins were not enough to mask the colossal failure that was Immortals of Avium. This was an ambitious first-person shooter that struggled to gain any traction from the start. It was an original IP from EA released into a crowded market with no clear audience. The game was essentially dead on arrival. Critics had pointed out its uninspired world design, repetitive gameplay, and lack of polish. Players were equally unimpressed, especially with its steep price tag of $70, which further alienated potential buyers. The result of this was abysmal sales figures that left EA scrambling to justify the $125 million investment. The studio behind the game, Ascendant Studios, faced massive layoffs shortly after its launch. We have the...
Yeah, I remember the game looked good. Like, if you looked at the trailer, it looked interesting. It's just, I mean, when it released, I didn't even know the game fucking released. Like, you see this with so many games where they release, you don't know they released, they don't know. No one knows that they've released, but oh hey, it's on the market, and no one fucking buys it. It's like at one point, it's like who the fuck are these games for? Like, they're not for us, apparently not. So who's buying the game? Who knows?
The release of Dragon Age the Veilguard, which was supposed to reignite one of BioWare's most beloved franchises, but instead it serves as a stark reminder of how far EA and BioWare have fallen. The game is nothing more than a shallow attempt at activism. Its characters were uninspired. They removed any real choice or role-playing from the game as they neutered the main character's ability to effectively express themselves in any way outside of being everybody's friend or everyone's slightly more stern friend. Now, mind you, this game was supposed to be a live service game during its initial stages of development, and halfway through, EA and BioWare ended up pivoting, changing leadership, and bringing on Corinne Bush as the director. Now, many have noted that this is the reason why the gameplay is so simple and repetitive, and why the level design is so linear, and it's because, well, it's the old foundation that was left behind. Now, while many in games media would have liked to mislead players into believing that Dragon Age the Veilguard was actually a really good game, a financial success, a return to form for BioWare, as many had said, flashing concurrent player numbers on Steam of upwards of 80k concurrent players in a year in which we saw many releases like Helldivers, Power...
Yeah, and you'd think 80k players is a lot. Like, no, not as much as it cost to make this fucking game. Like, in any other situation, you would, like, if you were to make a game, like, if you were to put, I think most games, like, an indie game, like, that cost, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 grand to make, couple years to make. Like, you would be ecstatic if 80,000 players at tops played the game, because that's just a return in your investment, right? You know, if it's for $20, $30, $40 for an indie game, that'd be amazing. But, see, it costs so much fucking money to make this game, to make Veilguard. that 80K, that ain't shit. And again, EA's a overbloated, multi-billion-dollar company that needs infinite growth, because if it doesn't, it'll coil in on itself like Ouroboros, the fucking snake. And it's like, this is the place where it's at. Like, this is where we are at in the gaming industry. And it's difficult to really express this because you try to, and, you know, people all they're on, like, they've already mapped out what side they're on in this discussion. And you know, they will try to, they'll only argue from their side and from their point of view, where it's like, okay, like let's look at it as a whole. Like, at the end of the day, like, we've entered this level of like, companies have entered this level of unsustainability in the gaming industry. Like, we need to address this. Like, the fact that games are not for gamers. This is something we need to address. But nobody, I guess nobody really wants to. Like, all anyone cares about is gender identity. Or, well, the type of people, the individuals that will defend games like Velgar and then attack you, the consumer. That's all they really care about. Where the actual gamers play the slop and it's like, get this shit out of my fucking face. Why are you wasting my fucking time with this?
World, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2, Marvel Rivals, Path of Exile 2, and quite a few others break well over 200,000 concurrent players, even 500,000 or a million concurrent players in some cases. The game ended up being a commercial and financial failure, unable to meet 50% of EA sales projections, and likely leading to the firing of Corinne Bush and the looming layoffs or potential closure of the studio if Mass Effect 5 can't deliver. Now, I brought this up in a previous video, but if they spent $125 million on Immortals of Avium, it's safe to assume that Veilguard likely cost twice that, if not triple that, since the game was in development for almost a decade and had considerably more marketing behind it. And I can already hear it now, but though...
To be fair, you did say invest. Like, spending and investing. I mean, I think in a sense they're about the same. I mean, there is a cost value to it, but spending is usually money that is put aside for the product, where investing is just, oh, well, we have this money, let's like effectively disposable income that you're willing to lose. Like, investments are primarily a risk. So, I mean, if it was a cost, that's bad. If it was an investment, I mean, that's still a lot of fucking money in the drain. But usually you expect the loss. Like when Sony invested 200, or supposedly invested 200 million into Concord, or into Firewalk Studios to get Concord into a playable state. Like, that is effectively an investment, because there's just a lot of risk. Like, it's them putting money into the company to be like, alright, we gave you this money, do something. Unfortunately, it flopped, and I mean, I guess in that particular case, yeah, it was a lot of fucking money to put in a game that barely 100 people fucking played.
Those are single-player games, LD. EA makes all of their money on live service games and sports games. A few losses in AAA is meaningless in the face of billions of dollars in microtransactions, right? Well, that would be the case if those games were healthy, but the cancer has spread throughout the entire publisher. Apex Legends, one of EA's crown jewels, has been quietly bleeding players and relevance over the past couple of years. After its peak in 2023 with an impressive 624,000 concurrent players on Steam, the the game has seen a steep decline, losing 70% of its players in 2024. Now,
yeah, I heard part of that was the fact that they like you're not allowed to buy. You can't buy the pass with the in-game coin anymore. Like you are forced to spend real world actual money for that, and that's clearly a decision made to try to squeeze the player base. And usually with certain games there's a projected downfall, but I mean also I don't know if this is the reason, but it just, like I said, it's suffering from, like, we need to coin this term where every single game tries to, like, every single company and IP tries to follow the leader and try to do everything that other companies do. And yeah, it might be successful for, like, Fortnite, but you shouldn't treat Apex Legends like Fortnite, because people would rather just, if they want to play Fortnite, they'll just play fucking Fortnite. Like, you play Apex Legends for a different type of experience, and like its esports was running fine, but there's also a lot of cheaters in the esports scene. Like, there's a lot of, like, botting, and people, like, I heard some people were even getting fucking hacked, and they don't care to do anything about it. So it's kind of losing in that aspect also. Like, everywhere you look, Apex is getting absolutely reamed, and like, they've done nothing, and yet they're still all out of ideas. So, and you see this with so many other games. Well, I guess the botting is different, but you see the companies switching values from the consumer to, how can we increase the exponential growth and the unsustainable standard we place on ourselves.
now just hovering above 100,000 players, essentially returning to their launch numbers. The minute that Apex reached its peak, EA sought to ramp up the game's monetization with costly new battle passes that removed the ability for players to be able to buy the next battle pass upon completion. Every new event that they added essentially became a microtransaction collection event, asking players to spend even more money. Meanwhile, there was no new real content that was being added to the game. Apex saw one map change and one new hero, and that's it. No new weapons, no new content, no value delivered to the player, only EA and Respawn hands out asking for more money. Now, amidst the turmoil, EA did achieve a monumental milestone with the release of College Football 25. The long-awaited return to the beloved college football franchise shattered records, becoming the highest-selling sports game of all time in the United States. However, the success of College Football 25 doesn't really matter, because while it did well in the US, and that's where people actually watch American football. This success means nothing in the face of a failure regarding EA's most popular and lucrative franchise in FIFA, now known as FC 25. Soccer is global, American football is not. Largely panned by critics for being uninspired, adding nothing to the game's core experience other than a roster update, all of EA's improvements and efforts went into the game's Ultimate Team mode, which is where most of their monetization is housed. It's essentially a gacha game for sports fans, and instead of collecting waifus, they're collecting their favorite players, who are essentially power crept 10 times faster than characters in Honkai Star Rail or Genshin Impact.
Yeah, and it's like, why would I play this? Like, if I can just play the waifu game. And hell, even waifu games are giving you better fucking stories than most AAA games nowadays. It's like, this is what I mean. If every game tries to follow the exact same, type of monetization standard, but they're not even doing that well, it's like, what do we call? Like, I think the enshittification was one term used, but I mean, I don't know. I think there should be a more accurate term to describe this phenomenon that, again, everybody sees, but no one actually wants to really, hammer home or talk about.
You guys think Chinese gacha games are bad? You haven't seen Ultimate Team. You could put a whole team together, and the next month, they're all damn near useless. Now, come to find out, this mode is actually EA's cash cow. This is where the vast majority of their money comes from. They use it in Madden, NHL, and FIFA, and the audience is tired of it. It's become too costly and too repetitive, and all of their spending is undone when the next yearly installment comes out. The players are tired of spending, and with no real effort put into the game's core experience, there's really no reason for casual players who don't play Ultimate Team to come in and buy the next installment. This is a huge deal, and I'm surprised that nobody's talking about it, but the financial impact of both FC25 and Apex Legends failing to meet financial expectations cannot be overstated. These two franchises are EA's primary means of making money, generating the bulk of their live service revenue. Without either of these games performing the way that they need, and all of their AAA games either flopping or being straight up financial failures, EA is in a lot of trouble. Recently, EA's leadership has promised to turn things around by 2026. Basically, 2025 is already a wash for them. But how do you rebuild trust with an audience that you've spent years exploiting? How do you reignite the passion of the players who have watched their favorite franchises erode under the weight of corporate greed? You don't. And I don't think they can. You now have a company that has spent years destroying its own reputation and the reputation of beloved studios and franchises that has created an environment in which even habit buyers don't have a reason to return because they've ignored the core experience of their games, and their increase in monetization and commoditization of their games has priced so many customers out of even buying their games in the first place. A company that laid the foundation of the industry is now going to collapse under the weight of their own greed and investor expectations. They have lost their financial foothold. Both FC25 and Apex Legends make up the vast majority of their microtransaction income. I am so surprised that they only fell by 15%, and I think the only reason they have is because their investors don't understand the full picture of what's going on or how much money they're going to be hemorrhaging very soon. Because this is not something that you're going to be able to dig yourself out of very quickly. That's the reason why he said, oh, we'll fix it next year, because they're thinking about annual releases. And people are going to sit back and say, well, LD, sports players, sports games, these guys, they're going to go buy the annual releases. And that might be true, unless 2K gets the license for FIFA.
Yeah, and again, usually the success of the next product is predicated off the previous one. Right? It's like if the previous product's a flop, like many investors, many people will just assume the next ones are also going to be flops. And this is effectively where we're at now. We're at this point where, flops are expected. And even the average consumer, the normie sees this happening, and because of that, they can't hide it anymore.
That would smoke them. Most sports fans or sports game fans, they enjoy the 2K games far more. I know I did. You bring back NHL 2K, you got me as a customer, baby. They'll be cooked. I don't think that their investors have any idea how much trouble this company is going to be in if they can't turn it around. And to be honest with you, I don't think they can. I genuinely don't. I am so surprised that I'm the only one that's reporting on this, because this is such a massive deal. Years of watering down, under-delivering, rush development, over-monetization, exploitation of your players, and, well, also on top of that, they have, licensed monopolies for years. Basically, every underhanded tactic in the book have put them in the corner. They don't have trust. They don't have people that are rooting for them anymore. You'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that doesn't think that EA isn't a parasite in this industry.
I mean, again, in the early 2016-17, people have already came to this conclusion that, EA, what people didn't know is that they would fail. We expected them, they'll always make money, because they'll always be, the type of people that just buys the games just because they bought the previous one and they want to buy the new one. But again, what we're being told now is not even that is working, and not even that not even, pulling from the normies is going to save them now. And that's what people are finding surprising. You know, they're reaching that point where they can't just rely on the normies, the people that just buy the game tertiarily, because they're turning away. So yeah, and obviously it was a long time coming, right? You know, everyone's seen this was about to happen. We just didn't really know when it was going to happen.
I've said it once, I'll say it again. You can only push your developers, your players, your customers, your franchises so far. You can only take so much until you've taken too much, and EA has taken the lion's share for far too long. I do not understand how they thought Ultimate Team was going to be a sustainable business model. I know I have gacha players in my audience. Think about if you played Genshin, and every year they just cut it off. They just stop developing. They stop supporting the game. All the money you spend, all the waifus you got, gone in an instant. It's time to play Genshin 2025.
There would be riots in the streets for the waifus. I guarantee you. Riots in the fucking streets. Hell, there'll probably even be certain court cases propping up about, again, how much do you actually own in live service games, because people would absolutely not stand for that.
New game, new waifus, start over from scratch. You're not building any loyalty. You're not building anything. The reason why those games are successful in the first place is because the players feel invested in those games, and if that investment is not respected, then those players do not stick around. So if you are, by the way, I want you guys to keep in mind, the pricing is like the exact same as gacha, if not more expensive in these sports games.
And gachas are better. Like, they actually, people who invest in the gacha games understand that they'll never get that money back. Like, they understand that, gacha is a money hole, and people go and they're expecting it. But, I mean, people at least at a bare minimum expect some level of value in AAA games that they spend money. The problem is the value just isn't there anymore. You know, because you as the consumer is not valued anymore. Right? So, and that's frankly where we're at with most AAA games in the AAA space. It's the devaluing of the consumer base.
And the characters are power crept 10 times, 20 times faster. It's crazy. If any of you guys have played it or seen it, it is wild how predatory it is. And that's not sustainable because you're just going to bleed your customers dry too quickly. And the funny thing is that you look at their sports games, and essentially all of their games are like this. I used to be an NHL sports fan. I still watch sports, but I just used to play the NHL game, but I don't play it anymore. And I was hooked on Ultimate Team for a little while. For a year, I was hooked on Ultimate Team. And when the new game came out and all of my progress, all the money that I invested, all the grinding that I did was basically thrown out the window, I was done. I was like, I'm not going to do that again. Are you kidding me? You don't get anything for anything, any of the work that you put in before? I'm out, man. No. Especially when you know that, how many times have you guys went and bought one of these sports games and you didn't buy it the day that it came out? So you come in 4 months late or something like that and you get the game. Now you're starting on the back foot and you're only going to have 6 months of those characters that you play being relevant? Are you out of your mind? It's not going to work. Well, I can't imagine them crashing hard and fast. I think we are going to bear witness to one of the greatest downfalls we've ever seen because they don't have the talent. They don't have the creatives. They have the IPs, but they don't have the people to be able to make them what they were before. BioWare is cooked. DICE is cooked. EA is cooked. Their core.
Yeah, and they think they can just skirt on the IPs alone and ring them for however much value that they have, but what's happening with Ubisoft is proof that you can't do that forever. people just won't stand for it. Like, people won't stand for being ringed out, being shook down and having their IPs held hostage by companies that just don't really care for the IPs. They just want to use them as money sacks, right? And I think that's probably what's something that's going to happen with EA. I think EA is also going to start getting shook down by its shareholders real soon. Like, if it doesn't happen in like the next, I don't know, couple years, I think it will happen. I don't know, give it 3 or 4 years. I mean, what we see is the initial starting of this, where, okay, they have a couple flops, and that's to be expected. But if you're in the situation with Ubisoft where major titles like Star Wars are flopping, then Assassin's Creed is probably going to also flop, and that flop is projected to be big. Like, it's their money makers, but they still have companies under their belt to squeeze. I just hope that, they suffer before then and realize, maybe we shouldn't squeeze, because if we do, we'll be in worse situation than we are in now.
Our studios everything's cooked. It's terrible. Again, I am surprised that they only fell 15%, and I think this is only the very beginning of what's going to be happening.
I think it's more than 15%. I think it's a hell of a lot more. Again, they don't want to admit to their failure, at least not too soon. Like, there's probably other projects in the works that they've told shareholders, this is going to be the next thing, or like they still have Mass Effect to work on and all that. So I'd say give them about a couple years. They'll feel the brunt of it soon.
Because you've just taken too much. You've done too much. It's not going to work out. Apex Legends, maybe you can bring back some players to that. Maybe you drop a new map and some new characters and weapons and things like that. You vastly change the game in some way that brings players back and makes it trendy again. Maybe. But the problem is that you have games that are out there now. Marvel Rivals, I realize it's not a battle royale, but they're able to deliver content at a cadence that I don't think Apex can. 4 characters in 2 months or something like that. 2 characters a month or whatever they're doing right now. Game's still at 400K concurrent players. They're doing just fine. And they're siphoning a lot of the players from some of these other games where they aren't being treated as well. I talked about...
Yeah, like hero shooters and all that. Here, like, those... And they're even getting a lot of new people. Like, a lot of people that, either played Overwatch or didn't play Overwatch, but they see this new game coming out, and they're like, yeah, I'll put some of my time in it. Like, yeah, Marvel Rivals is just this wave coming through, and they're sucking ass. Like, they're sucking ass in a good way, as in they're sucking the ass of all these other companies that, again, they had popular games, had popular IPs under their belt, but now they're choosing to pivot in this direction that's anti-consumer, and now the consumer is finding out what's happening, and they're turning, like they are running from the AAA gaming towards these other IPs, and I think even more people are going to run towards them, but we'll see. And again, this is something that's like, they put in time, money, and effort to have something like this happen and to erode the goodwill. And now they're blaming you for the goodwill that they chose to erode, because they'd rather treat it like a mass-produced product. Yeah, that's where we're at.
About that in my Marvel Rivals is a wake-up call video. Monetization's better. It's not in your face. They're not begging you to do anything. You can just play the game as is if you wanted to, and you'll never be bothered by it. That's not EA. That's not how they roll. And that's not how they're going to be rolling much longer. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of this. This is going to be a wild ride. I'm going to tell you that right now. I got the same vibe that I got from Ubisoft, and well, let's hope I have the death touch. Let's see if it can happen again. Let's see if I make another video about a company potentially, falling into ruin, and see if that, gets accelerated by, me making a video. Wouldn't that be great? I would love to have that power.
Yeah, apparently, according to the people online, it's the YouTubers that are killing games. They're destroying our games. I'm like, I wish I could psychologically manipulate people to subscribe to my fucking channel. That'd be huge. Like, that'd be a level of power that, the whole 10 people that are watching, we're gonna do this, boys. Like, I get it, y'all. Y'all are in major positions to ensure the downfall of the game. I need y'all to act swiftly and accordingly. What the fuck am I talking about? But anyway, yeah, apparently we're killing. Now, come on, like, bad products kill companies, not the consumer. Like, the consumer just wants a good product. Like, it can't be, like, it cannot be simpler than that. Like, but yeah, this is a good video.
Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. If you guys enjoyed the video, share it with your friends, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, follow me on Twitch, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Oh no. But yeah, let's give it a watch. My favorite gaming joke was always, why is EA the worst video game favorite in America? Because Ubisoft is in France. Yeah. I'm glad both companies are struggling. And hey, more companies are going to follow. Thanks for the title of the video. Let's not forget SimCity, one of the most well-known and beloved simulation games, now is literally forgotten and long dead. I know a couple people that are still grasping to the corpse of the game. Not for too long, though. Even the corpse, now they're even starting to smell the rot. And they're like, yeah, maybe we should get off this. The rot began in the 2000s when they dissolved several studios like Bullfrog, Westwood, and Origin. That was what made people hate them originally. Yeah. Just the sucking and dissolving of companies is something people see and are like, what the fuck? Like, who the fuck do you think you are doing all that shit? Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, and EA, nice. Looks like games are healing after all. Yeah, we might go through a drought in gaming because a lot of these companies are getting butt fucked, but I think we'll enter a sort of like this silver age of gaming. I'd say in the next couple years, right? As the filth washes out, and it is definitely the age of the indie company right now. Like, if you're an indie company, like, you better use their downfall as a means to prop yourself up. Because now, it's even to the point where, like, shitting on these companies, it will guarantee you sales. Like, shitting on these practices, like, I see this with Forever Winter. They're like, yeah, we're not doing any of that shit, and people will, like, take my fucking money, please. Like, it is so fucking free to just shit on bad companies and just watch people just come over to your side, and hey, you should milk that for all it's worth. I am convinced that one of the biggest hazards to innovation, quality, and consumer awareness is making a company public on the stock market. I mean, I don't know about all of that. I guess. I don't know. That all just seems just. I mean, publicly trading a company isn't too bad. It's just okay. Are you adherent to the shareholders, or are you adherent to the consumer? I mean, that's just something you gotta watch out for. I remember when Ubisoft is bad, but it's not as bad as EA at least. Was somewhat the settlement back then. Yeah, I mean, they were still releasing decent games. They were just, I don't know, it's like the open world schlop that you've seen a million times, and you'll probably see a million more times. Like, that's what the stink and stigma they had on them. Now, it's the fact that they're getting butt fucked by their own shareholders. But, that's all I gotta say about this. A good video. Peace.